Welcome to the Spotlight On series, where we get to sit down and speak to some of the most inspirational market leaders from some of the UK's most exciting brands. We'll learn about their careers, their challenges and their achievements, all to inspire you to help you grow your careers. Well, welcome, Chloe. So I won't ask you to big yourself up because that can always feel a little bit awkward, but to give our viewers a little bit of background, you've had a wicked journey today. You kind of started your career actually out in Germany. You then moved to the UK and worked here with us at Impression for 5 years, working your way up through the ranks, which was awesome, working on some wicked accounts, if I remember rightly. And then over the last sort of year or so, you've moved over to the huge retailer Dunelm, where you're working on the SEO side of things. So rather than me give you too much of a hype, how about talk about yourself?
So yeah, I work obviously at Dunelm now, so I'm on the SEO team there. I've been there for a year, almost a year. So I work on a team of 4, report to our head of SEO, and kind of work really collaboratively with him, where he kind of owns more of the tech side, and I kind of work with content teams, commercial, really get stuck into knowing the products. Like I know a lot about curtains, bedding, lamps, lights, and just kind of like work with the numerous teams to improve our organic visibility. There's a lot of layers.
A lot of layers, indeed. What do you, I mean, we'll jump straight into one of the key things I was hoping to talk to you today about is the transition from agency to in-house. Obviously now you're in-house, but you've been in-house before as well, is that right? Yeah,
so I did a couple of years in-house at a company in German, learned SEO in German, which was obviously quite challenging. But then, so did that for a couple of years, about 18 months, working in Munich for a travel company, but literally just fell into it. Was just applying for marketing internships as part of my year abroad, and then found a job, in SEO. Didn't even know what SEO meant on the first day. And then really got up to speed, worked on loads of site launches, rollouts, and was responsible for kind of the UK-US side of things. And then kind of moved back to Nottingham, applied for a load of jobs and picked Impression. I guess, again, like didn't know much about agency, just knew that it was maybe a little bit more, like you could be more agile in your role and you could change paths. Because I still wasn't sure, I want to be an SEO forever. I mean, here I am 8 years later.
still going strong.
Still doing it. Yeah. So that was kind of how I got into SEO, basically.
How have you found the latest transition back to in-house then? What are you enjoying most about that?
It's like a tale of, I'd say, three halves, not 3 halves. It's like in 3 parts really. So when I joined, one of the reasons I joined Dunelm was because I was looking at different brands. I think it's really important that you like the brand, and for me I do. Like I love Dunelm as a brand. I love the products, love the kind of values. And when I was interviewing, the thing that stood out for me was just how my manager was really keen for me to be able to kind of just immerse into the brand. And that's something that I did at agency, but obviously it always has to stop because you then work on another account. So I was able to do that for 3 months, and it was challenging, like, because it was slower. There wasn't any loads of meetings or loads of kind of putting together strategies or pitches and calls and things. It's quite slow. So the first 3 months was quite challenging for me. But now looking back, if I didn't have those 3 months, I wouldn't be where I am now in the business with kind of the relationship. So that was challenging. I think I had like 60 intros in my first 3 months, right, with all different people.
It is a company of 30,000 people.
Well, yeah, we're like 12,000 people. It's crazy because there's so many like people in tech who obviously like are very siloed but are so important. And then you speak to them about something really granular, and then you don't speak to them for another 6 months. Yeah. So my first 3 months, and then after that, it became kind of, we decided to hire, so we grew the team while I've been there, and then I was able to kind of like train a little bit, and still am training kind of my 2 team members, and now it's more, we call it like BAU, that's the constant thing we say, it's more like BAU work, and the pace isn't as fast as agency, as in like you're not kind of like splitting between loads of different accounts and things, but definitely I'd say I probably wear more hats now. Like I have more different hats I have to put on than I did agency.
So one of the previous conversations we've had is like when we've moved into the in-house role, it's that whole idea of wearing different hats is you're actually doing a lot more outside of SEO, right? You're kind of having to stick a commercial hat on. You're having to work with distributors. You're having to work with retail. It's like how have you found the transition of being kind of like an SEO specialist and an SEO consultant when you were kind of agency side to then having to still be the SEO leader, but with lots of other knowledge of how the business operates?
It's been great because I feel like I'm just learning so much. Like obviously I learned for 5 years at Impression like so much about SEO and about how businesses work. But that obviously comes to a point, it was very more like digital specialist type role. Whereas now, if I wanted to say go a bit more generalist, which is potentially the path I would take in 5-10 years, I now have an understanding of, you know, distribution, product design. Like I've been to a mock shop, which was so fun. And, not, you know, and it's just seeing things and speaking to different people, like speaking to like, you know, the people that have designed our most popular brands, our products, and the people that are responsible for making sure we have the stock in our stores and all of that stuff. It just makes you understand, makes me understand I'll never be able to own a business. It's far too complicated.
What are the things that you valued the most from working agency side, and what's kind of facilitated you to be able to do your current role so well?
Definitely stakeholder management, like that.
Upwards and so,
Like just in every way. So obviously at Impression, some of the accounts I had, I wasn't speaking to SEOs, but then some of them I was. And I think the thing that I now have is even more empathy for those SEOs in-house. And just when, you know, even I remember some of my old clients here, like some of the SEOs that I would report to at Impression, they would just be like, I've got these meetings, sorry, I'm busy for 3 days. And I'd just be like, what are the meetings about? I don't know. And now I understand what that is, because actually there's so many things that you don't know about until you start being in meetings. And then you're like, oh, this is actually something really exciting, but you're just pulled into things. Like as an SEO, you're pulled into so many different things because the business knows that you should be involved but doesn't know why until you're in the meeting. And so I have a lot of empathy for that. But the other thing I think as well is just like the thing I learnt the most is making time for yourself and your own development. And it's just, I kind of came, I guess, Impression almost full circle, where I started not very confident, not really understanding how businesses run, and then obviously working with like you and Tom and Aaron and other kind of people, understanding how to run an actual business like an agency more, and then understanding how to pitch, and just all of that stuff gave me the confidence to now be able to, like sit in a room with direct. It's still intimidating, of course, but be able to sit in a room and be confident. I think I definitely learnt that Impression.
Is it important to have a niche? Is it important for everyone to rely on you for one particular thing?
Well, I'm going to say it depends.
Good answer.
But no, I think it's just really important to be open-minded. Like I came into Impression not knowing what I wanted to do, really, in terms of SEO, learning a bit of everything. And I think the thing that I was always really supported by was just other people spotting things in me. So, for example, oh, you're quite good at talking about this, or you work on a particular brand or a particular website and you spot similar issues to another client and you find a niche there. I think having people around you that can kind of help like elevate that is really important, because I think it could have been international, it could have been something else, it could have been content, or it could have even been technical. But the fact was, I think with like my language background and just loving working with like so many different people, because a lot of people don't like just working with a broad range of people. Like I think in SEO now it's really varied, but like me and my manager always talk about kind of some of the more like technical SEOs, they just like getting their heads stuck into a computer all day, whereas I've always kind of liked, you know, working with people and learning from other people, and especially when it comes to like different cultures and languages, and that was always very exciting for me. So that's why I think I fell into it, but I don't think I found it. I think like it kind of, I don't think I ever really was like, oh, I want to develop a niche. But I think, you know, understanding your strengths is the biggest like place to start. Like if you're waking up every day and you're feeling pretty stressed and pretty like, oh, this is really hard, and that's probably not your niche. And I think for me, as soon as I started doing the international stuff more, I was like, this is quite fun. Like people seem to be listening to what I'm saying, and like clients seem to be happy. And
when you were searching for a role, at any point in your career, like what were the kind of the key things that you're looking for that you knew would help you to continue your progression? Is it the people you're working with? Is it the culture of a company, or is there anything in between that?
There was a lot of things. The two most important things were the maturity of the brand and the manager. So the maturity of the brand, I wanted to work for a business that was established, that was well known, that was a household name, so that you're not kind of just trying to work constantly with like PR comms teams, because that's not my strength really. Like that side of marketing isn't where my strengths have been in the past. So working with a brand that's already established, a brand that's like clean. So obviously for any SEOs, I guess, listening, like a site that hasn't kind of had any issues, or a site that hasn't migrated in a terrible way. I didn't want to go in and do any recovery or anything like that. So that was kind of really important for me, and just making sure that, the brand kind of knew what they were doing. And I think some of the other kind of brands I was obviously looking at, like some of the bigger ones where you've got like fashion and food as well, I wanted something that was a little bit more specific for now, just kind of so that I could maybe, focus, even though there's a lot of products like on obviously that Dunelm sells, it was more something that wasn't too broad. And then the other part being the manager, like that was super important to me. I wanted to learn from somebody, and somebody that was, I guess, like calming and organised and just had a really good grounded understanding of SEO. And I think sometimes when you go in-house, you can report to like a digital marketing manager or to a marketing manager or a brand director or something like that. But it was really important for me to have a good manager, because then it also meant, well, okay, they've got a head of SEO, so that means that the business is bought in to SEO. And I think, working with loads of brands at Impression, one of, I guess, the biggest challenges and frustrations is where a brand doesn't, you can tell that your contact who loves the agency and loves you and loves your work is constantly selling it in to someone else.
It's a bit like tiring, right?
Yeah, it's tiring, and it's just one of these things. I think it can be for like many reasons, but it's often, I think, just because there's not an individual that's like, right, we need to invest in this. And of hiring my manager, that happened about a year before I joined. Less than that, like maybe 9 months before I joined. So it's still a very big like transition, but the manager was really important. And I had a lot of interviews like with Dunelm, so I obviously got to meet loads of different people. And I think people say, the people are really important, but no one's going to come across horrible in an interview to you. Like so they're not going to, I don't know, actually, but they're not going to, but it was just making sure that their approach and mindset and the things they were saying, so I asked the same questions to different people and got quite similar answers with like differences. So it was all really positive.
And shifting it then on to retention, like obviously a lot of businesses at the moment, it's, it's absolutely obvious that there is a staff shortage, certainly in the digital space. Like, what is it that keeps people in a brand or in a company? What is it that's the most important thing to you personally, do you think?
I think open communication is a big place to start. I think that's something that Impression always did super well, and that's why I think like so many people stayed at Impression for probably longer than they thought, because I think sometimes you come into an agency and you think about it like a stepping stone, and I think that's something that communication is really important. With team members, but also I also think you have to be careful as to like not over communicate to allow for people to have autonomy as well. So I think giving autonomy and communication. So the way that I guess I always have tried to manage people to like retain people is by just asking them what they enjoy. And I think even if you're not getting asked that by your manager, by thinking, okay, what do I enjoy? Like that whole thing of like, I've woken up with a knot in my stomach because I know I've got to work on this today. Well, okay, like power through, but just and you one-to-one communicate it, and just having open communication. It's not just the manager, like you have to do that yourself, because otherwise you'll just kind of go around in circles. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, again, makes a lot of sense as well. So I want to explore a little bit around the idea of specialising and what that can bring. So, you know, it sounds like you specialised originally when you were in your first role. You came to Impression and specialised in obviously SEO, and you're even specialising now. What does the future look like for you? Do you think it will always be specialising, or is the plan to try and broaden out? And if so, what does broadening it out potentially involve?
I don't think I'll be an SEO forever, because I think naturally the way businesses are evolving, I think there will always be SEOs, but I think there is a need for, like a lot of SEOs now own agencies and things like that. I think a natural progression for a lot of SEOs, maybe in my position or who maybe have some of the skills that I have, would be to move to potentially like a more of a digital content director role or a head of digital content or something along those lines, where you're not just, in meetings as the SEO, you're in meetings as the digital content person who was an SEO for 10, 12 years or whatever. And so for me, I think moving down that path is naturally what's happening anyway, in kind of the way a lot of businesses are growing, the way definitely like Dunelm, the way any business is evolving now with moving more online in kind of a post-COVID world. I think we have to think more, okay, what do we need to do well on our website? And to do that, you need people like SEOs, PPCs, you need specialists in editorial, in all the different areas. You need people from UX in all these conversations to do things really well. And yeah, I think that's something that in the future, what does that entail?
Big question, right?
Probably.
Well, let me frame it then. What are you specifically doing to potentially aim to pick up a role like that in the future? Like, what do you think are the key attributes that you need to, or the skills that you need to develop?
This sounds really cliched and annoying, but it is genuinely relationship building. Like, that is a massive part of it. I think relationship building in terms of within your bit, if you work for a big brand where there's loads of people doing loads of amazing things every day, just understanding what they do, and understanding if you can tap into work streams. And things can be really siloed, even in an agency. You can have PPC and SEO very siloed, for example. Well, in-house, there's a lot more silos. So building relationships with different people and just understanding, okay, well, you're working on this, you're making the decision to grow this particular part of the business or grow this category, but actually I've got some data to show you this. And it's kind of, building relationships to understand where you can feed in. I think that's a big part of it, and seeing what works, but also just keeping up to date with what's going on in the world. So like in marketing generally, I think I've learned more about like shares in last year than ever before, and just keeping in tune with like, why are businesses doing well? Like, why is IKEA had a growth? Why is DFS declined? Like, all of these things are what I'm trying to do.
So it's like taking yourself out of the day-to-day and actually trying to understand more about the market that's going on around you and how that's influencing performance?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's probably the biggest difference now with working at Impression and it really did the right job for me, but it got to the point where I didn't really want to read about SEO every day. And I wasn't really, like, I was doing, more generalist things as well, like with the international offering and managing a team. But now I feel like I just have more time where I can actually, understand market more. Like, I'm in meetings where we're talking about market share and, like GfK data and all of that stuff, where I think when I was at Impression, it was more focused on SEO, which is obviously really good, because now it means that I have a specialism. Like, the only way to get into some meetings is to be a specialist.
Yeah,
and to learn from other people. Like, you never want to be the smartest in the room, but I think sometimes being the specialist helps you to like learn from loads of people.
You've gone from obviously what you were doing at Impression to now slightly broader. How are you still making sure that you stay on top of everything that's needed from an SEO specialist perspective? I guess your role is getting broader, but that must be tough. Is that through reading? Is it through conferences or what?
So definitely like me and my manager, for sure. So he's like an SEO of like 15, 20 years.
Since it began.
Since it began. He's like started off, as like building websites type of SEO, and then fell into SEO. And like he worked agency before me as well, and before, like, same as me, sorry, and being able to talk to him and bounce ideas off and sometimes debate. Like, we have a lot of, as you can imagine, like a lot of discussions about SEO things and what we should be doing and prioritising, and just being able to learn from someone that has that helicopter view and learn from, because, you know, he's worked on much, like, retail is a new thing for me. Like, I didn't really do a lot of retail at Impression. I did a lot of e-com, of course, but in terms of having that, like, store and online presence, there's so many people in the business that, you know, the majority of their job is stores, that's it. So having these debates and conversations with my manager, and then being able to just talk to, like, my other team members who are also SEOs. I think we're lucky, we're a team of 4, and I don't think I would be, and that again was important for me moving. I wouldn't have moved into a job where I was a one-woman band, because it would have just been selling SEO to everyone else. And then I think by the end of, like, a year, I would have just been, am I really telling the truth? Like, so
questioning yourself.
Yeah, but obviously that's not the case for everyone. So that's where I think, like, working with agencies. So I know some of our, like, more smaller channels within Dunelm, same with when I work with clients at Impression, they would bounce ideas off me. I was their agency. So I don't think, if you're moving in-house, I don't think you have to have a team of 3 or 4. That's not always going to be the case. I mean, some in-house brands have a team of 50 SEOs. But for me, it was, finding a team where I could, we have weekly team meetings where we talk about the SEO news and algorithm updates and what's going on. And we attended Brighton SEO, which obviously is great, but I do think it's not necessary to have to go to big conferences that can be expensive, because I know a lot of businesses don't have the budget for it. I just think starting the conversation, so get people on, one person on your team to tell you the news last week, because often, like, my manager doesn't have time to read that type of stuff all the time.
So I guess what you're saying is it's about having an internal culture of, like, knowledge sharing and relying on each other, as opposed to necessarily going out and having to source everything yourself every time. Yeah,
and then your team members. So if you've got somebody who's just joined, who's, you know, new in SEO or a year into SEO, they can then tell you new things, and that does the world of good for confidence. And that was something that I think at Impression, like, we had things in place, like on my team, especially when we went into lockdowns and stuff, we had daily huddles where we were just sharing, and that really helps people's confidence grow. If you're just telling people, giving people tasks all day, they're not going to have that confidence. So, yeah, that's definitely a key part of it.
You're in an absolutely awesome role now, and it's really admirable. There must have been times where you've experienced either rejection from job applications or something that quite hasn't gone to plan. Can you maybe elaborate on any of those situations?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, like, I was looking for, like, an in-house role for quite a while. I knew at Impression I wasn't, you know, just ready to just leave. I wanted to work for a brand that I really cared about, with people that cared about the brand. And I guess naturally, like, I applied for some jobs where, like, I got into the interview and I spoke to kind of about my specialist skills and things I enjoy, and there were rejections where it was like, oh, you're not, you know, right for this, we're looking for somebody who's more skilled in that way. And it did make me go away and learn and pick up things, and there's every business is completely different, and I think agencies are the same, where they'll advertise for, you know, a content specialist, and that can mean a lot of different things in a lot of agencies. And I think it just made me, you know, like, kind of reflect on, well, what do I actually want to do? Because actually sometimes where I then realised, oh, this job entails this, I was like, well, actually that's not right for me either. Not always the case. Sometimes you do get rejected. I think earlier on in my career, when I was applying for internships, I went into jobs thinking, I'm perfect, I'm gonna be so good at this, and then I spoke German and they hung up on me, and it was really, like, that type of thing is really hard. But I think, everything happens for a reason, and, like, a couple of years ago, I think I didn't think I would find an in-house job because I loved my clients. Like some of my clients, I thought they were amazing and what they were doing, and I just think, you know, I didn't think I would find a job that would tick all the boxes for me. But yeah, I think you have to ask for feedback too. Like I think at Impression and even now at kind of Dunelm, we're really good at getting feedback from other colleagues. So when you're in reviews, or if you're just having one-to-ones, if you do a task, just like, what did I do right or wrong, and trying to get people to give you feedback and giving feedback to them as well, like, is really useful to be able to grow and develop, because you can't, not everyone can get the job, and you just have to, I think, learn from that.
Let's look back against or across your career then. What's been some pivotal moments for you? Like what's really helped you level up at various different points?
There's one thing that comes to mind
Oh God, yeah.
immediately with you.
Okay. We'll edit this bit.
No, like one of my biggest, adult career moments was winning a pitch with you, and like a massive RFP that we'd worked on, and it was hard, like, and then I had a lot of confidence knocks along the way, like a few like stress cries, and it all came from not knowing if I was good enough, I guess. And that was pivotal, because then having, you know, kind of worked on that account until I left, and it was sad, like, to say bye to it, but then almost it was happy to just kind of see where I'd like grown with the account, and things like that are just amazing. And like remembering the feeling of going into a pitch when you're really sweaty and you're like not knowing if
flustered.
You're flustered, and you feel like you're just probably like now you're just saying things that probably don't make sense, and then everyone's like, yeah, that's really good. Can you sign this massive contract with us? And then you're just like.
So would you say it's a confidence thing? It's like, I guess, retrospectively realising that, I'm good enough. I'm good enough to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge pivotal moment. And then the other big one that I can think is like, was again getting the job at Dunelm, of course, that was huge. But before that, like seeing my team grow at Impression and giving promotions and seeing people grow from, you know, on the grad scheme to becoming managers. And that was always something that I wanted to do selfishly. Like I care about them growing and everything, but being able to just see that through and watch people grow, I think you learn a lot about yourself as well. And you learn kind of, how they've handled themselves and why they've got where they are. And it helps you to just grow and develop yourself and then move that to another business and to help grow a team as well. So growing a team has been pivotal, and is now, like, being able to manage and work with like my two team members now, who are like great. They are so great to work with, and watch them grow and come through the challenges is pivotal too.
Awesome. You've kind of talked through how you got into marketing, but what about sort of your university degree? What about sort of anything pre-university? Has there been anything that's really added value towards your career and that's helped you progress?
I think it's a real big challenge, because I studied German and philosophy, and I am not a German philosopher right now. So it's really hard, because I do think there is value in going to uni. I don't think that everyone gets the chance that should to go to uni, but I also don't think uni is for everyone. So I think for me, going to university was really good in terms of moving to a city. So I'm from a really small town in North Shropshire, like tiny. So going to a city and finding a city where there's loads of job roles and there's more going on was really eye-opening, but not something I discovered until I was applying for jobs. So I guess my point is maybe not necessarily going to uni, but thinking about looking broader in terms of cities and places is really helpful, and that's something that helped me. But also just keeping in touch with business news and things like that was also quite helpful. And having kind of, I don't think A-levels did really help as such, but I think it does equip you with public speaking and things like that. Like I, was involved with things like drama and andrams and all of that stuff. And I guess now in hindsight, it did help. It helped with confidence and it helped with that side of things. But also the languages was helpful. So I think everyone should learn another language. I think even if you maybe don't want to travel or can't travel, I think just learning another language, even having like an app on your phone, is just allows you to just like broaden your mind in that way. And kind of I got to immerse into different cultures, like living in Bavaria in Germany, and that was really, really helpful as well. I think to just stay open-minded and things like that have been really important for me. I think moving into my career, really.
Amazing. Moving over to advice side of stuff, what sort of advice would you give yourself thinking back to when you started your career in search?
I think the biggest thing I'd probably say is just like do research, like for before an interview, just be prepared, but just relax your shoulders, smile, not like I'm doing now. Just relax through it, because I think it's really important. This is really cringy, but I can be quite philosophical, studied philosophy. I think you just have to sit in the moment, and I think focusing every time on, so I'm going to apply for this job and then get this job, and then I'm going to do all these things on all these accounts or on this one brand, and then I'm going to, and it's exhausting. And I think sitting in the moment, I think there's a lot of times where probably when I was agency side, I didn't do that. I didn't just sit and enjoy it and just be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this for 2 hours. I think I was always often planning ahead for something else, and now that's something that I've learned and I now do. And I think I wish I'd done it sooner, just being able to sit in the moment a little bit more, and just realise that life does go on, which doesn't dismiss stress, of course, does not dismiss stress, but it just means that you can just enjoy it and try and realise that like the people around you as well, like big them up, they big you up, and you can definitely like become a more confident, happier person.
What about anyone who's been working in a similar situation for quite a while, feeling perhaps like they're starting to stagnate a little bit, or is looking for that next step? Like, any advice for anyone who might be in that position?
I think definitely like understanding again what you enjoy, what you want to do, like why is it you're even thinking about, like why does the grass look greener? Because it's not always greener, but often I think in digital marketing things change all the time. Like you could move into a business where you're really, really valuable, you're doing everything you want to do, and then the business changes and another business will thrive from having your skill set. So I think understanding what's changed is really important. Is it because you're no longer, is it because you're now managing a big team? Or is it because you're now working with developers and you're having to learn loads of new things? Or is it because you're working, you're just working on your own? And I think once you understand what it is you're looking for, you can then start asking that in interviews, because I've interviewed a lot of people, like, as like a hiring manager, and when they don't ask you questions, especially if you're interviewing a manager level, it is a bit concerning because they need to pick you as much as you need to pick them. Yep. So I think understanding, okay, I really like working with people, then that's really important to say, oh, well, I want to learn from other people. But if you're actually quite good at getting your head down, some people know exactly what they want to do. Like they know their technical SEO skill set, they know they know what type of copywriter they are. Just interview and ask questions about that and just find a job where you are matched, because in digital there's not a shortage of job roles, and I think every business needs to think more digitally, and you might teach them something in your interview as well. Like when I've interviewed specialists or people, it's like, oh yeah, actually the business really needs this, or we really need this at Impression, we need someone like you, and that's really important.
Amazing. Well, that very much brings us to a close of the interview. I can't thank you enough for joining us. Hopefully there's been some good takeaways there for everyone who watches, but thanks very much, Chloe.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. For more content like this, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social.